Hey, Guoba here with a guide on Hook, the Klee of Star Rail. If you need a Fire DPS, look no further than Pitch Dark Hook the Great. We will be going through her stats, abilities, traces and Eidolons, and then discuss her best relics and light cones, and finish with her rotation and team compositions. If you like these guides and want more, don't forget to subscribe as I'm doing in-depth guides on every unit in the game. Let's begin. So Hook is a 4-star fire character obtained from the gacha. She follows the Destruction path, which is a path specialized in large damage and survivability. Destruction are more flexible DPS compared to Hunt and Erudition units, without as much damage in the specific niches of these paths. So at level 80, Hook has a very high base HP of 1340, a base attack of 617, and a base defense of 352. Her base speed is very low at 94 and her energy cost is 120. As a destruction unit, she has a taunt value of 125, which is equivalent to having a 27% chance of being hit in a standard team comp. This puts her actually at the second highest base HP in the game, only below Jeopard and beating even Bailu. Her attack is not bad too, she's above average in that regard and has one of the highest base attack values among 4 stars. For defense, she actually has the second lowest base defense in the game right now, compensating for her high base HP and survivability. She's also the 3rd slowest unit in the game. Finally, her energy cost of 120 puts her in the majority of units with this high energy cost. So the HP and attack are fantastic, but the last stats are quite disappointing. Have no fear though, Hook still excels. Let's move on to Hook's abilities. Her basic attack is Hee Don't Get Burned. She will deal a standard amount of fire damage to a single enemy, dealing 30 toughness damage. This will regenerate 1 skill point for her team and 20 energy for Hook. Before we move on to her skill, let's discuss her ultimate as it will enhance the skill. Her ultimate is Boom Here Comes the Fire. At an energy cost of 120, this will deal a very large amount of fire damage to a single enemy. After using this ultimate, her next skill will be enhanced, turning it from a single target skill into a blast type skill. This ultimate will do 90 toughness damage and refund 5 energy for Hook. Her skill is Hey, remember Hook? And yes, we are literally talking about you, Hook. Her single target unenhanced skill will do a good amount of fire damage to a single enemy, alongside a 100 base chance to inflict a burn on that enemy for 2 turns. This burn will deal a small amount of fire damage at the start of their turns. The unenhanced skill will do 60 toughness damage and regenerate 30 energy for Hook, as well as consume 1 skill point. Her enhanced skill is now a blast type skill, meaning she will deal a bigger amount of fire damage to a selected target and a smaller amount of fire damage to the adjacent enemies. The main target yet again has a 100 base chance to have a burn debuff applied to them. This won't be applied to the adjacent enemies and the burn damage is still the same. So it just increases the damage and allows for some AoE damage. This will deal 60 toughness damage to the main target and 30 to the adjacent targets. She will still regenerate 30 energy from this and consume 1 skill point. Now like Pela, Hook is a bit tricky when it comes to energy. Hook's talent is Ha, Oil to the Flames. When Hook attacks a target afflicted with burn, she will deal additional fire damage and regenerate 5 energy. Note that this won't count on the attack that applies burn, so you have to have burn applied before you attack in order to gain this energy. However, this extra damage makes her already potent base damage go even crazier, and the energy is really awesome. If you use her AoE skill as well, this will attack up to 3 enemies, allowing for a gain of 15 energy, which is pretty insane. Remember, breaking enemies' toughness with the fire unit will apply a burn debuff too, and since Hook is very strong at breaking toughness, this synergizes with her kit even more. Finally, Hook's technique is Ack. Look at this mess. This is an attacking technique, so use buffing techniques before it. At the start of the battle, Hook will deal 60 toughness damage to all enemies with fire weakness, and then she'll deal a small amount of fire damage to a random enemy. Then she will have a 100% base chance to inflict burn on all enemies for 3 turns, taking a good amount of fire damage at the start of their turn. Pretty nice technique and gets the energy rolling when combined with her talent. And the 3 turn duration means she could cycle to that AoE skill for that large energy gain. Let's now move on to Hook's trace passives and bonuses. Her first passive is Innocence. She will restore 5% of her max HP whenever her talent is triggered. So now her talent can do additional damage, regen energy, and heal her, which is pretty insane for a 4-star. And again, if her AoE skill is hitting multiple enemies that are burned, this will proc each time for a maximum of 15% max HP healing, which is amazing for a DPS to have, and it's why she's a destruction character. Her second trace passive is Naivety. She gains a 35% chance to resist crowd control debuffs. Now this is awesome for a DPS to have to avoid losing tons of damage potential. Being frozen means you won't be taking a turn for quite a while, and you might even die. 35% crowd control debuff resistance means at level 90, a 100 chance of being frozen is now reduced to 86%. So not as strong as you'd assume, but not bad. Her final trace passive is Playing with Fire. When using her ultimate, she will have her action advanced by 20% and regenerate an additional 5 energy. This is an insane trace to have. She literally has the Eagle Relic set as a trace passive, on top of some more energy regen. If she hits a burned enemy with this, she could start off with 15 energy after an ultimate, leading into an AoE skill for some crazy energy regeneration. Her trace bonuses are in HP percent, which is great for more tankiness, but they're also in attack percent, which is amazing, and crit damage percent, which is incredible. The only way to top this would be to have fire damage percent as a trace bonus. Let's now discuss her Eidolons. Early to Bed, Early to Rise is her first Eidolon. It's a simple effect and will increase her enhanced skill damage by 20%. This means that this 280% multiplier value will now effectively be 336% instead. Very strong buff due to its high base multiplier. Happy Tummy, Happy Body is her second Eidolon and will extend the duration of the burn from her skill by 1 turn, meaning it now applies a 3-turn burn. This is perfect for her as it gives her a whole nother turn of proccing her talent for energy. Normally I wouldn't discuss the third Eidolon, but I just want to say that since it increases the skill's multiplier, it makes her E1 even stronger. It's okay not to know is her fourth Eidolon. When Hook triggers her talent, she will have a 100 base chance to burn enemies adjacent to the target enemy with the same burn damage as that of her skill. This is a crazy Eidolon to have unless you've got a lot of burn effects from other characters or you're hitting everyone with Hook. This means she can focus now on one target and still reap her maximum effects. This is also so strong for her talent's damage and energy. So with her E4 now in her ideal scenario, she can now skill and burn one enemy, use her ultimate on that enemy which procs her talent for energy. This ultimate will advance her forward and regenerate some more energy. This ultimate, which will proc her talent, will burn enemies adjacent to the target with her E4. And then she can enhance skill on her next turn for 45 energy, 300% attack value and additional damage, and a ton of base damage. So I think her E4 is amazing. Her E6 is also very strong, but this E4 scenario is very, very cool. Now if that wasn't enough, her final Eidolon is always ready to punch and kick. And this will make Hook deal 20% more damage to enemies afflicted with burn. I don't think I need to explain how strong of a buff this is. So Hook is very obviously an awesome 4-star and among the strongest 4-stars for DPS. She has great damage and sustain and energy regeneration all in one little kit. Her Eidolons up to E4 are pretty nuts for a cool combo, and her E6 is just pure damage boosting like Serval's. Her toughness damage is awesome too. Perfect to survive even more versus those fire weak enemies. Her slow speed is the downside, but the advancement forward in her final trace passive and some speed boots, alongside maybe Asta, can mitigate this a lot. If you're against a non-fire weak enemy, she drops in value, but her tankiness is nice if you're running a solo sustain. So her best relic set will be the Firesmith set. Pretty self-explanatory, the fire damage bonus is massive, and the extra skill damage percent is perfect for Hook. This also gives her an additional 12% fire damage on her next attack after her ultimate, which is where you'll skill, giving a 34% damage increase for her enhanced skill, minus any bonus effects. Another awesome set for her is the Musketeer set. The attack percent is great, the speed percent is great, the basic attack damage can be nice in some scenarios. You can also mix the two sets for a 10% attack increase and a 10% fire damage increase. If you're feeling sus, you can run the Thief set, but it's really not recommended. She benefits way more from crit. For her planar ornaments, you want to run Space Seeing Station or Inert Sr.Toasty. Both are great boosts to her damage. To hit the 120 speed threshold, you'll only need speed boots and 1 speed substat. For her main stats, you'll want crit on her chest piece, whatever crit makes your ratio better. For boots, you will want speed. Attack percent on her boots is only potentially good with Asta, and if you're not using Asta and you're not bringing speed boots, you might as well not run hook because the enemy has already taken 50 turns before her. So speed boots, attack percent if you're running Asta, and for her sphere, she will want fire damage percent, and for her link rope, she will take attack percent. For light cones, her best in slot is a choice between On the Fall of an Aeon and Woof Walk Time. The difference is that On the Fall of an Aeon only becomes better if you can get some weakness breaks off. If not, Woof Walk Time will come out ahead, as its damage buff is bigger and has a way better uptime. Something Irreplaceable is also great on her if you're running her as more of a bruiser and expect to tank hits, but you should just put that on Clara anyway. Any other 4-star light cone is good on her, but since Woof and Aeon are free, and Woof has no other users, I'd recommend just getting them. And no, the 3 stars are not better than the 5-star light cone. For her rotation, you can either go skill point neutral or skill point negative. If she's your primary DPS, I recommend of course going skill point negative. You know, you need that damage from her. Here are the rotations and their respective energy gains in a skill point neutral playstyle, and dependent on the number of enemy burns. If there are no burns, which is unlikely, it takes 5 turns to rotate. If there's 1 burn, this is reduced to 4 turns. If there are 3 burns, it is also 4 turns, but you can also use another skill and go slightly negative for a 3-turn rotation. For a skill point negative playstyle, so for main DPS hook, you'll need 4 turns with no burns to cycle her ultimate back. With 1 or 3 burns, so in any content, you only need 3 turns, which is awesome, to cycle back to her ultimate. Now onto Hook's teammates and team compositions. A great buffer for her is Asta. Asta has fire damage buffs and attack buffs, as well as speed to enable even more cycling for Hook. Asta can also burn with her trace and has amazing toughness damage, allowing for an easy uptime on burns for Hook, allowing the two to form a very strong break duo. If you're not concerned about energy on Asta, which I think you should be, you can run Planetary Rendezvous for even more fire damage for Hook. This can be combined with Fire MC if you're focusing versus fire weak enemies. Fire MC also has great toughness damage and tanking, which synergize with Hook's healing and Asta speed buffs for great survivability. You could run a full burn meme team with Fire MC on the Trend Light Cone for tons of burns. For a standard and cheap team comp, you can run Fire MC, Asta, Hook, and a Flex into fire weak content to absolutely destroy it. Now, you won't always face 2 bosses that are both fire weak, so a team I find myself running a bunch is the very aggressive Hook, Serval or Xingxue, Danheng, Fire MC team into early Memory of Chaos due to the multiple element coverage, as the bosses have lots of different elemental weaknesses. The damage takes down enemies well enough that Fire MC is enough for survivability. This is purely from my experience though, and wouldn't work versus harder hitting enemies, and it might not even work for you. So I would swap a DPS for a sustain unit, dependent on the enemy weaknesses. A mono fire team would consist of Hook, Asta, Fire MC and Silver Wolf for a whole load of buffs for Hook's damage, and the possibility of bringing the team versus non-fire weak enemies. That's all on the Bombastic Hook. If you liked the guide and learned something, like and consider subscribing. If you have any thoughts or theory crafting ideas, let me know below. If you are building Hook and are enjoying her, let me know how you built her and how she's performing. Anyway, thanks for watching, have a Guoba day.